climate change is an issue that needs to be addressed. But you have said that climate change is a result of people's body heat and are refusing to take action on the issue. Does this have anything to do with the $200,000 that you have taken from the fossil fuel industry?
Rose, you know what? I appreciate you being here, and you're 18 years old, and you know you're a little young and naive. Let me.
It's Thursday, July 26, 2018. Welcome. Are you ready for this? Welcome to the 100th episode of Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Today, like every week since we launched this podcast back in March 2016, I'll talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Today, we're going to switch things around a little bit. Bring some Pennsylvania stuff up front so Sean could go to sleep when we're talking about the national news. On today's show, Scott Wagner made international news this week when he called that 18-year-old Rose Stauss that you heard in the intro. She was from the youth environmental group called Sunrise Movement. Well, Wagner decided to call her young and naive for challenging him on his climate change denialism. And Sean Kitchen, well, he just kind of, lit the fire on that one. Philly solicitor Marcel Pratt says that ICE is most likely in violation of an information sharing agreement with the city. Rob Roger, remember him? He's the political cartoonist from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that got the boot because of his anti-Trump or his critical Trump cartoons. Well, guess what he got? His own exhibit at the Corcoran Museum of Art in Washington, D.C. There you go. State of Pennsylvania orders companies to plug more than 1,000 abandoned gas wells. The wells pose potential environmental risks that can leak climate-wrecking gases. Rallies are being planned for fall across the state in support of the PA Promise. That is the free college tuition bill that will be on the agenda come fall. Floods across the state and in Harrisburg thanks to torrential downpours and training showers. I didn't know what the hell that was. I had to look that up, but I learned a new weather word this week. Training showers. No, and that's not what happens during your first week of basic training. That's something else, which I also found out about this week. H&K contractors post Wagner Bartos signs outside pipeline construction staging area near Ricketts Glenn. How's that for your support for big gas working for you, Governor Wolf? Huh? Signs are now down, by the way. So I was just up there again. In today's national news, we're going to be talking about Mark Janus, the man who brought us Janus versus Ask Me. He retired from his union and gets his Union 1 pension, and now he joins a right-wing think tank, the Illinois Policy Institute. Yep, there you go. His coworkers throw him a party, but don't invite him. And centrist Democrats hold a conference to figure out how to stop progressives ahead of the 2020 presidential election. They call it Opportunity 2020, and they come out of the conference still with no idea about what their agenda is. They'll still be looking to the polls to see which messages work. One potential centrist Democrat running, Tim Ryan, says that he's getting into the 2020 race and he's going to win the yoga vote. That's going to save us all, man. The yoga vote. Okay. Jeff Sessions joins students attending Turning Point USA conference in D.C. and joins in with chants of lock her up. The guy who's the head of our judicial... Yeah, you know him. You remember him, right? Everybody? Yes?
You're going to the jail.
Yep, that's what he says. Maria Butina, red sparrow, I guess, which is weird. Maria Butina, she will remain in jail as her case gets more interesting because now it starts to implicate the NRA. And the NRA is tight-lipped, uncharacteristically tight-lipped about this one. Georgia Republican Jason Spencer said some really racist shit on Sacha Baron Cohen's new TV show, Who is America? And after originally saying, no, there's no way I'm going to resign, well, he resigns. New study from Princeton and Northwestern universities offers evidence that the U.S. is indeed an oligarchy. Economic Policy Institute also issues a new report that shows the new Gilded Age actually is indeed upon us. It's already here. Climate scientists warn that the red alert is on. and the Trump White House is doing everything it can to reverse 20 years of progress. Progress, I should say, that is actually insufficient to prevent global warming, global climate change, whatever you want to call it. Young Swedish activist boards a plane and refuses to take her seat in order to prevent a man from Afghanistan from being deported. Her video from her phone goes nuts. Today is the deadline for the Trump Organization to reunite families. What do you think the odds are that's going to happen? A lawyer that's working on the case says, quote, there doesn't appear to be any rhyme or reason on who gets released and who doesn't. It's mind-boggling, unquote. And it turns out Putin gave Trump a soccer ball with a transmitter chip in it. That can't be a problem, right? Score! Let's look at the review. And even Billy Joel wants to know why more people aren't cracking Nazi skulls. Billy Joel, folks, the piano man. And today's last call, a lake found on Mars? You bet. Friday night, Mars will reach opposition, and it'll be its closest approach to Earth since 2003. We'll have a link in our show notes on how just to see it. Friday night will also be the longest blood moon of the 21st century so far, but it won't be visible in North America, so, tune in online, I guess. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson tells David Ignatius from the Washington Post that the Space Force debate is just great. And Airbus is actually building Skynet. Cue Terminator memes now. Huge shout out to Breaker Brewing Company in Wilkes-Barre. I even got a warm Raging Chicken welcome up there. Pretty cool. Talk about some of the samples I had there. And Sean goes to Forest in Maine. Did he actually bring his niece with him? It's a whole different kind of babysitting, if you ask me. I want to remind everybody the Free Range Episode 2 has dropped. Colleen and I were on a marathon. It took us from Hannah Arendt through making beer with climate, fighting grain, winding up cooking with buffalo, and all sorts of other great stuff. We went so long, I swear to God, we did not even realize how long we were going, that we also released, in addition to the full nearly 3 hours of the podcast, we also released it separately in segment 1 and segment 2. So if we go long like that again, I think that's the way we're going to go. You can check us out at freerangepod.com and like us on Free Range Podcast on Facebook. Please go and like us, leave us comments, join up. It's an awesome, awesome show. We've got some great stuff in the works. We now are officially live on Google Play Music, too, as well. And we expect to be on live on iTunes any day now. We're just waiting for the official confirmation that they've, given us our blessing and approved our podcast. So, in the meantime, you just go to freerangepod.com, you grab the RSS feed, and you can plug it into any podcatcher that you got. Remind everybody to tune in to the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, and through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. I want to give a right up the top. I forgot to do this up at the top last week, so I want to do this right now again. We did it at the end of the show last time, but I want to give a huge shout out to our 2 latest new members. Thanks both to Shanna and to Shireen for becoming members at the $10 a month level. We are now less than $100 away from our next goal. And if you become a member today, you're going to help pay our writers more for their awesome work. Right? You want to see more stuff go crazy and go viral like it did with Sean's kind of latest video, right? Come and support Raging Chicken Press. Just go to patreon.com/rcpress and become a member for as little as $5 a month. Because if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media, and you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Right, with the 2018 midterm elections right around the corner, we need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. And the best way to do that is become a member of Raging Chicken by going to patreon.com/rcpress and become a member for as little as $5 a month. Not ready to become a member? You can just go to ragingchickenpress.org, look for this big blue donate button right in the sidebar, and you can donate any amount from $5 right up to $1,000, which would be awesome. Right? I also, right at the top of the show today, I want to give a huge thanks and shout out to the folks over at Party Unity. It's a new podcast, and it's the official podcast of Social Dem. Social Dem's a political blog, a media project covering American politics with a special focus on the interrelation between the Democratic Party and the socialist movement. And their latest episode focused on some of their favorite lefty media, and they gave us a big shout out on their show. Thank you so much, and they got in touch with us. I've floated out to them too. Might be cool to do some kind of some collaborative podcasting in the future. future. It could be really awesome. But check them out. You can go. They're on SoundCloud. Go to soundcloud.com/socialdem and check them out. And let them know that Raging Chicken Press sent you over there. We'll also put a link in our show notes so you can check them out. So crazy. So Sean, another awesome week of like just insanity. And to make sure that you don't lose your sugar rush that you got from your donuts this morning, we're switching everything around and making do the PA stuff first so that you can sleep through the second half of the show, all right?
And the third half.
And the third half, right?
Well,
I'll wake you up when we start talking about Forest and Maine and something else that you're interested in. How's that?
It sounds good.
By the way, we'll be taking auditions for some new talent on the podcast because Sean is fading. I had to, Sean. No, but seriously, let's start off. This is huge, man. It's been nonstop. If you remember, everybody, last week on the show, we went on Wednesday instead of on Thursday, our normal summer day, we just kind of left it vague that Sean had some stuff to do, right? Had to go away. Well, now you know what he had to do. He went to go see Scott Wagner. So, Sean, kind of run us through this from like start to finish about where we're at.
Yeah, so Scott Wagner has been having a bunch of town halls this month. He had 6 of them, and pretty much he had them to turn them into like one big campaign commercial, basically, and trying to get Governor Wolf to come out to these, and he was complaining about it, and he had like really high-end video group record all these things, these town halls, and one of the town halls was in Mechanicsburg, which I was able to go to. He then had a town hall up in northeastern PA where he met the Moon family. We were talking about that last week, the gun nuts.
I'm smart enough to, form my own opinions.
Right.
And, it was a really bad couple of weeks for Wagner recently. He was questioned on his support of the Rod and Iron Ministries, the people who, gave the invocation of the AR-15s up in northeastern PA. And then, he was campaigning with the former mayor of Monessen out in western Pennsylvania, who has a few sexual harassment lawsuits out there against him. And then he wrapped up his town hall tour out in Glenside, Pennsylvania, which is in Montgomery County, which is 10 minutes away from where my home is. I had to end up going home last week just to help out my sister babysit my niece for a couple days.
Which we will talk about a little bit more in his last call. But anyway.
I figured why not go to the town hall?
What the hell? It's right down the road, right?
It's literally like 10 minutes away from 15, 20 minutes away from where my home is out in Horsham. And, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you actually took the time to go home and kind of exercise your mind powers and prepare for that, because you could not have known what kind of gold you were going to be sitting on at the end of this.
Actually, I actually developed like this telescopic like power and like be able to see into the future, and I knew what was going to happen.
Well, see, I kept on saying, because people were saying online that, you planted all this stuff, you made it happen. And I'm like, they didn't know, Sean, that look, the cat is out of the bag, man. Like, you're the next Avenger, man. You've got the mind powers. You went there with your telegenic stuff and you sent the messages out.
So actually, like, I came up with this plan sitting in a basement of a pizza shop. And, I was coming up with this plan to I was sitting in the local basement of a pizza shop that did not have a child sex ring in it, but it was more like a mind power ring, and I was thinking, how am I going to fuck over Scott Wagner? Not more because he's just how do I make him look like a bigger idiot than he already is? And
which is I have to say, that is quite a that's
like a Nobel Prize feat right there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I mean that's tough to do to begin with. So
yeah, I'm expecting a check from the Wolf campaign on this and a Nobel Prize in physics.
Yeah,
for developing telepathy.
What the hell? While you're at it, send that little email back to Soros and see if you can set the hook.
Yeah, all of them, and Tom Steyer too.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll be looking for a lot of royalties coming up in October and the beginning part of November. But no, in all seriousness, there was a question that was asked by this girl named Rose Stauss. She's 18 years old. She is going to college at UC Santa Barbara. So
for environmental science, by the way.
For environmental science. Not that easy of a school to be getting into. Let's just put it out there. And she asked Senator Wagner, challenged him on his bullshit climate denialism. That do we have that clip ready about the Earth getting closer?
Yeah, this is so you remember when Scott Wagner says,
I'm smart enough to form my own opinions.
Right, some of his opinions are things like this.
The Earth moves closer to the sun every year. We have more people. Humans have warm bodies. So is heat coming off? We're just going through a lot of change. But I think we are, as a society, doing the best we can.
Right. When Wagner said that, now again, that made it all the way to John Oliver's show. Right. That's what I mean. That clip was pulled and that went crazy at that time. Once that started kind of like making its rounds. So yeah. So there you go. Let's one more time, just so you know what his own opinion is.
The Earth moves closer to the sun every year. We have more people. Humans have warm bodies. So is heat coming off? We're just going through a lot of change. But I think we are, as a society, doing the best we can.
This is, I guess, what humanity is going through menopause in his view. Is that what it is? I don't know.
And so he was rightfully challenged on that question, on that theory of climate denialism, and asked why is that the reason why he has not returned the $200,000 he has received from the oil and gas industry.
Right.
And Scott Wagner said, Rose, it's nice being here, blah, blah, blah. You're just a little young and naive.
Yep. That was the spark that lit the forest fire.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to able to capture the beginning part of her question, and then, or the middle to the end of her question statement, and then Wagner's full on statement. And he did a really great job at pivoting to a completely different subject.
Yeah,
which is actually caused by climate change.
Exactly. So I thought that was great that Wagner says that and then says, what about all the rain, right? And then now we're actually watching as floods, right, and nonstop.
As the river that's 500 feet from my apartment or 300 feet from my apartment is about to flood over. Thankfully, I'm in a 500-year floodplain, and it'll take a 30 or 40-foot crest to happen and reach our place, or even 50-foot crest. So even though how close we are to the river, it would have to really flood to get up to my apartment. But there's parts of Harrisburg that are going to be flooding down this week, and I'm going to be taking pictures afterwards. Maybe I'll just do that to the second and third segments while you're talking. And
yeah, I'm just going to go leave he's going to leave his apartment. He's going to go take pictures and then come back.
But what he said was that he pivoted towards potholes opening up, or not potholes, towards sinkholes opening up, and raw sewage being washed out of the tanks. And there's a couple different things here. One, these are caused by heavier rains, which is caused by climate change. And two, Scott Wagner does not know a basic function of municipal government. When it pours, and these these sewage treatment plants cannot handle all the inflow of water that's coming in. They just open up the gates and let everything go out. And, it's pretty much the solution to pollution is dilution.
Right.
That's pretty much the theory that they run on. So, and Scott Wagner is talking about this as if he knows what he's talking about, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is a very basic function of municipal government. And here's someone who doesn't know how municipal government works, but he wants, to run a state.
Well, but look, Sean, I don't think you're giving him credit. You're not giving him the respect, that he's due.
I'm in a waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
See, he does know what he's talking about. See what I'm saying?
I think my favorite part of that whole back and forth was when he said, are we here to elect a scientist
or a governor?
Or a governor.
And I love the Twitter responses on this one. It's it's not a kind of an either or. I'd actually like to have a governor who kind of actually understands at least baseline science, right? So, and
then Scott Wagner's people made it even worse once it started becoming a story. The next day, his press secretary, Andrew Romeo, who used to work for Ed Gillespie's campaign and then also worked for Chris Christie at some point, just a failure fuck-ups, pretty much said that, it's naive to think that Scott Wagner does not believe climate change is real.
Let's hear this again, folks.
The Earth moves closer to the sun every year. We have more people. Humans have warm bodies, so is heat coming off? We're just going through a lot of change, but I think we are, as a society, doing the best we can.
Right. So let's be clear here, right? And that's just the most like ridiculous evidence that's out there. Like this is just.
It was so bad that John Oliver was making fun.
That's exactly right. So for his campaign to even claim that Wagner actually fully believes in climate change, blah 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 blah, it's just freaking nonsense.
Yeah, and
but so I think the thing here too is like why this took off so much, right? I mean, first of all, you posted this video almost immediately, right?
Yeah. Well,
there's no waiting around.
So actually, what was great, I got this. So like before I posted the video, after the town hall ended, one of Scott Wagner's field staffers came up to me and shook my hand and said, "Sean, it's nice meeting you, blah, blah, blah." We had a little back and forth on Twitter a couple of times. He's genuinely a nice person. Like I think this guy's like a really nice person. He's probably working on the wrong campaign and will probably be looking for a job come November. But I mean, like, the staffer I met, he seems like a genuinely nice person, and we were talking. And
were you like to him like, wait, hold on a second, I just got to push this send button.
I was thinking like, he's like, man, I was thinking like, man, just give me like 10 minutes, 10 more minutes once I'm outside,
and we'll go have a beer, man, because you're gonna need it.
But the one of the funny things is like after I posted the video, I was talking to a couple state reps that I know, and they're just like. They were like, well, why the fuck did they let you into this event in the first place? Yeah. They know all the stuff you said about him in the past. They know how much you detest him as a human being, and they still let you in there.
Right.
I mean, right. And I did get kicked out of their opening campaign event back in January 2017. So that was awesome. But and we hit the send button, and then from there got the ball rolling.
And since then, I mean, look, we're talking about. I told you this. Is I have my friend Stu, who lives in Northern Ireland. Right, he sent me it was kind of the next day. Right, he sent me the story from the BBC. He said, like, "Hey, check this out." Right, I'm like, dude, Sean Kitchen for Raging Chicken. That's his video, man. This is like, you don't think, you think this is news to me, man. But and I think that this is one of the perfect examples of the importance of this kind of media, right? Is because this went from a story that could have remained relatively obscure and specific to here in Harrisburg. But we've talked about this before on the show. At Raging Chicken, we think the most important thing that you can do is to have this kind of, nitty gritty, local, regional reporting, right? That's, pull no punches media that can take a story that might just be kind of like, a very small local appeal. It's
great having that lateral movement, but also having that vertical.
Exactly. Right. And you only do that by establishing networks and establishing connections and establishing a certain degree of legitimacy and credibility over a period of time. Right. That's why we say, look, when a Raging Chicken, if you're interested in doing this kind of work, right, get in touch with me, ragingchickenpress@gmail.com. Right. Get in touch with me and we can help you do this stuff. Because, look, I mean, Sean has been doing this now. We've been doing this for 7 years. Right. And it takes a while to build this stuff up. But, the networks that you've helped build, some of the stories that we've brought from, the kind of obscure
Metcalf stories or.
Yeah. Like, what was that dude? I was trying to remember the guy's name. The guy out, the coal dude out west with the bats. Remember that story?
Pyle,
right? I mean, another great example of something that kind of would have just remained a kind of regional or local story, and it kind of like blew up and went national. And then you've got this story with Wagner. I mean, holy crap, man! In a few days, this went from from you tweeting this stuff out and circulating a kind of, and then you saw Fetterman tweet this out. You saw Ryan Grimm go and kind of retweet this, and then it went BBC, Australia, and then just this morning? Was it yesterday?
Yesterday afternoon, New York Times interviewed Rose Stauss. She also got an op-ed, like a 1,000-word op-ed in Teen Vogue magazine,
which is amazing.
Online. Yeah. And, then her op-ed was republished in Penn Live. And, also the Fetterman campaign has also kept this thing going by just trolling Wagner constantly on social media.
Fetterman's hilarious on this stuff, man. I've just been like...
Yeah. Yeah. The Wolf campaign has released Young and Naive bumper stickers now. Fetterman campaign has Young and Naive T-shirts for sale on his website. I mean, like, they're just cashing in on this. And, I mean, as they should. I mean, we're still like a week out. We're over a week out of this, and this is still a media story.
Right. It's awesome, man.
And this is the type of thing where, like, once October comes around, I guarantee you this will be used as a video or as a campaign ad. I mean, this is just campaign ad gold material, and we're not even in August yet.
Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it. Gotta love it, man. Crazy. Yeah. I have to say it like this, to some degree, what we're seeing is that, yes, a campaign that is just going off the rails. But I think that, the fact that you see what's going on at the national level with Trump and all this kind of stuff, and see Wagner, early on hitching his wagon to this, hitching his wagon to Breitbart, hitching his wagon, to
Bannon.
To Bannon in particular, and the fact that this guy is horrible, and the fact that the national media is actually paying attention to this now is absolutely critical, and the reason why we need people on the ground that are covering this stuff. So kudos to you, man, for getting that stuff out. And I have to say that the Sunrise Movement, right, which here's the other thing that's important for people to understand, is that Rose Stauss wasn't just kind of some random kind of woman who just like showed up and asked a question, right? She was part of the Sunrise Movement, right, which is kind of all about activating younger folks, getting them politically involved, specifically around climate issues, but kind of more broadly than that. And she's been part of this movement. Right, and then she's there, and especially to hold these people, their feet to the fire. And sure, she did, and here's the result. So kudos to Rose Stauss and the Sunrise Movement.
And the Sunrise Movement has just been killing this on social media as well, getting this stuff like out to more people. And also, I think one of the things we got to touch upon with this is how since Parkland happened, 60% of the voters who have been registered in Pennsylvania to vote have between the ages of 18 and 30 years old.
Yep.
And this is who Scott Wagner is calling young and naive.
There you go.
And
man.
there's going to be 4 million 18-year-olds able to vote this year in this year's election. Doesn't mean they all will, but if a good number of them vote, like a quarter of them vote, that could change a bunch of elections.
Yeah,
you have those millennials or the Generation Z now coming into a voting age, and this is who the Republican Party decides to call young and naive. This is not exactly winning over the younger groups.
Yep. Exactly. Huge, man. So this is big. I have to just a couple things that I want to. Well, anything else you want to say about the Wagner stuff and the thing, because that was freaking awesome.
Yeah. I would say there's also one more thing about this.
Yeah.
Dave Davies from WHYY was there at the event, and he went to ask Wagner about what will happen to Roe versus Wade. This is something that got overshadowed by this stupid comment he made, but basically that Wagner is saying that whatever happens,
right,
to Roe. So again, that's another reason why elections have consequences.
Yes.
Jill Stein doesn't get to pick the Supreme Court nominee. And that we'll have to be fighting to keep Pennsylvania a state that honors not women's rights, but also reproductive rights.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. And I'm sure that the frustrated and angry people will be showing up in your Twitter account later today after they hear that. Once again, some interesting stuff that's going on in the state. It's kind of important stuff. And it's the kind of thing that is, again, it's the unsexy thing that is happening across the state. But I think given what's happening nationally around ICE and the deportations and all this, it's kind of interesting to see this stuff play itself out in Philly, because Philly ICE has been especially aggressive in its attempts to deport folks and round people up and so on. And now you've actually, again, this is the reverse side of the elections have consequences stuff, right? So you've got Mayor Kenney down there. You also have Marcel Pratt, who is basically saying, "Hey, look, he's not the prosecutor, solicitor. Thank you. He's like the solicitor down there is basically saying, look, ICE is not complying with a information sharing agreement, or it's actually in violation of this. So basically, Philadelphia basically entered into this agreement about this. There's this thing called Preliminary Arraignment Reporting System, or PARS. And the idea is that it would share this information with ICE, right? Especially when they're looking for, targeting, say, potential terrorists and all this other kind of stuff. Well, the claim is that ICE is actually using this system as a way of kind of finding out people who might be undocumented workers, undocumented in this country, and seeking them out, which is a violation of that agreement. And so basically, they're looking for not renewing this this agreement with ICE, which is a pretty big deal. And the city seems to be behind this. And I think that this is this slow... Well,
it doesn't seem like Kenny's behind it yet.
Well, he's kind of playing it in the middle. Look, I mean, I think he's playing a political game, right? He's certainly, Pratt is... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I also think that, how much of this is him playing a political game because it's an election year and he doesn't want to, screw up the ticket for Wolf, Fetterman, Casey, and others running statewide.
I think that's part of it. I also think he's he knows full well this is one of the problems that you get in Philadelphia, is that you've got some strong Democratic support, which happens to also be kind of on the racist end of things, right? You got sections of Philadelphia that are coming out for Kenny and coming out for politicians to help support him, but are not good when it comes down to kind of questions of race and immigration. Right, so I think that's kind of part of what's informing that. But look, Larry Krasner is kind of all out behind this. Larry Krasner, again, once again taking the lead and becoming an outspoken critic of this kind of seek and destroy mission from ICE, which is pretty amazing. So that's really great to see coming out of Philly. At least this stuff. Because can you imagine if there was different people that were sitting in those seats? Right, that they hadn't come out and said that Philadelphia is a sanctuary city, that we want to be a sanctuary city, and we're not going to kind of share this stuff, and now actually taking an initiative and saying, what, we're going to push back against ICE in the ways that we can, right? So I mean, yes, we'll see where this plays itself out, but that's, I think, moving in a positive direction.
And I feel like the activists here have a point. We're a sanctuary city. Why are we helping out ICE?
Exactly, exactly. And this is the kind of concrete stuff that becomes important. It's not just about passing a resolution or do this stuff, but then it's actually doing what you can materially, right, to pull away any kind of compliance with ICE. Because let's remember, immigration is a federal jurisdiction, right? That this is not a local law enforcement issue. So there is no reason why these local law enforcement people have to comply, right? Or districts or municipalities have to comply with whatever ICE says. ICE can go out; they're going to do their thing, right? But doesn't mean that kind of Philly or any city, for that matter, needs to make it easy for them. So pretty crazy. Two things I want to mention. These are one thing that was just kind of interesting, and then I want to kind of close out with some stuff that's going on with planning for the PA Promise rallies come the fall. One, I mentioned this in the intro, but it was this is kind of near and dear to my heart too as well, because I love the Corcoran Art Museum in DC. Is just freaking awesome museum. When I used to teach at George Washington University when I lived in D.C., the Corcoran is kind of I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 blocks, I don't know, away from GW. And I used to take my bike, when I have a break in the day or something, I would take my bike over the Corcoran to kind of check it out. It's just a fantastic museum for so many different reasons. They did some really cool stuff. There's the back end of it has got this kind of Gary addition, so it's just kind of crazy cool architecture along the back. But anyways, they kind of came up with this. It's a pop-up exhibit, basically in response to Rob Roger. He was the political cartoonist from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He was fired for his cartoons that were critical of Trump. And the response of the museum was like, look, this shouldn't have to happen. We shouldn't have to have an exhibit like this. But we cannot allow speech to be curtailed by these kind of corporate interests and these political interests, right? So they say we need to give this a venue and bring it like today. And the cool thing about this exhibition, which I guess is running through October, it's called Spiked: The Unpublished Political Cartoons of Rob Rogers. It had sold out openings, just opening last week, and they're using this as a part of Corcoran has got its own School of Arts and Design, it's affiliated with GW, but they're actually using this as a teaching moment with their own students. Right? And some of the cartoons that are on exhibition are those ones that got spiked, those ones that got killed, but also some of the drafts of the cartoons, which a lot of people don't get to see, that were also shot down before it ever kind of even came close to publication. So kudos there. It's a great example, again, about pushing back in any way possible. And for the fact that Rob Rogers came out and basically spoke openly about this, right, and kind of pushed back against his own editors at the Post-Gazette, now it's actually making kind of a national splash at the Corcoran, right? So kudos to those folks for bringing that stuff up.
Also talk about how much of a hard right turn the Post-Gazette has taken over the past year.
Holy cow. Yeah, big time.
I mean, the new investors is really good friends with Donald Trump. Has pictures with Trump on his airplane. He brought in an editorial editor from Toledo, Ohio, who's also very conservative. And Rob Rogers has really never had any of his cartoons spiked until this past spring or summer. And he had 6 or 7 of them spiked from the editorial editor that was brought in from Ohio. And this is the direction that the newspaper is going in.
Absolutely.
And we should also say that another person in Pittsburgh that was fired, we didn't really talk about this, Charlie Deitch from Pittsburgh City Paper, which is owned by the Butler Eagle, which is where Daryl Metcalf, he was fired after they posted some stories and used one of our photos of skinheads attending one of Daryl Metcalf's gun rally. And he's claiming that Daryl Metcalf got him fired for writing unfavorable stories about him.
There you go. This is our climate, folks. This is the climate.
Where, Metcalf is a out and out racist,
right?
Misogynist, homophobe, xenophobe.
No, exactly.
Daryl Metcalf.
Yep, still got that sitting around. Can never let that go. So 2 quick things to kind of close this out. One, this is just kind of one of these examples when I'm like, yep, here's where you get it. We all know, we've been critical of Governor Wolf, especially when it comes to kind of fracking and his kind of support for big oil and gas in the state. And see this as kind of a real failing on his part, really to take an initiative and get behind kind of the transition to renewable energy, right? Because all the studies show natural gas, especially when you're talking about fracking and things like this, is not a bridge to the future. Is actually kind of exacerbates the problem in a whole series of different ways. Well, I'm not going to rehash that conversation right now, but this is just one of these kind of micro examples of, people who say that Wolf is, playing a political game and, he doesn't want to alienate them because, for election stuff, and he still wants to get the, the severance tax and blah, 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 blah. So I've been going up back and forth, Ricketts Glenn area. We spend time up there. We go up there on little vacations and stuff. And so there's a pipeline that is running through the area, right? The construction, I've posted pictures of this on our Instagram account before, and it runs right through some wetlands, and it runs right behind, right next to Ricketts Glenn State Park. Some of the most pristine fishing waters, right? Kind of up in that region, Luzerne County.
One of the best state parks in the state.
Exactly.
One of the most beautiful parks in the state.
There's all sorts. We go on and on and on, right? Pine Creek runs, or Kitchen Creek actually runs right through there. Kitchen, yeah, there we go. Kitchen Creek runs through there. Pine Creek runs runs along a kind of different trajectory, but they kind of connect up. And Fishing Creek runs down through Benton, right? So all this kind of stuff comes together. And it's this huge watershed area, and these pipeline is running right through this area. So take that for what you may. So I'm driving back down 118, right between kind of basically Red Rock, which is at the kind of the foot of Red Rock Mountain, where Ricketts Glenn State Park is. From Red Rock headed towards Wilkes-Barre or Dallas, Wilkes-Barre area at 118, and the staging area for all the pipeline construction is kind of right there. And it was H&K Contractors, I believe, is the contractors are there, and that's where they basically park all the vehicles and come pick up the stuff, and they lay their roads and do a lot of blah blah blah, right? All the construction is there. So 2 weeks ago, I was up there, and so I'm driving past this, and right out in front, the entrance of the pipeline, the staging area, a place like that, are big signs for Wagner and Bartos, right? So political campaign signs, right, outside the staging area for Wagner and Bartos, right? I swear, I wish I gotten a picture of it at the time, because I'm sitting there like this, like, here's the payoff, man. Right, so this is what it gets you to support the natural gas industry, Wolf. Right, it gets you them kind of posting political signs for your opposition. Now, I have to say, I was there yesterday because I had to go up and kind of, there's a delivery come out. It's a big long story. I won't get into it, but and that sign is now taken down, so not just the regular thing. So there is that. But I'm just like, look, these people are not our friends, right, at all. And they're going to do anything in their power to secure whatever it is that they have. They are not kind of like allies of Governor Wolf. They are not allies of some sort of progressive future. They're not allies of a bridge to a sustainable future. They are people about extracting resources for their own profit, period. That is it. Right? And a lot of those plates that come in to work on those pipelines are not even from the area. So there you go. Just a reinforcement of that little ditty.
Yeah. And I will say this, as much as, we should go after Governor Wolf on this, we shouldn't be pulling votes away from Governor Wolf and trying to get a Green Party person in office.
I was wondering where you're going to go with this.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. This is not like one of the things I've been getting into this week. Yes, Wolf's environmental record is questionable, but if our goal here is to pull votes away from Wolf and give them to the Green Party person that no one knows about that's running for office, that's just a really bad political strategy, because let's just say Governor Wagner, there will be no environmental rights. There will be no workers' rights. There will be no reproductive rights for women. And just, they'll just rattle off the list.
No, but this is the whole point, right? When you start dealing with like politics,
silos, people in their own silos.
No. I was going to say something else. I was going to say, when you start dealing with politics in the real world, right? When you're thinking about building long-term political strategy, right? Is that you can walk and chew gum at the same time, right? That and frankly, a vote is not about your personal, like, ethical, spiritual core, right? It's not a reflection of your freaking soul, right? What it is, right? It represents a move in one direction or another. Right, and that's it, right? And so the question is, from my mind, is that, okay, why do we both criticize Governor Wolf, but at the same time say, no, we're going to vote for Governor Wolf. We're going to vote for Governor Wolf to be reelected, because you can push him, right? That's why you need to be critical on him where he fails a progressive future. At the same time, is okay, wait, given what is the best possible scenario for advancing progressive politics right now, right? And that is having someone that you can push, right? Is Governor Wolf the pure, representative of the second political coming? Hell no, right? But given the fact that, do you want to redo the Trump phenomenon at the state level, or do you want to kind of be able to have someone that you can push and move forward? Right. The fact is that we're in the process right now in this state of transforming the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, as we saw that what's been going on in Pittsburgh with Sarah Innamorato, with Summer Lee, with Elizabeth Fiedler down in Philly. We see this gradual push, this movement, right, to basically change the way that this party operates. Right. And the way that you can absolutely be sure to give centrist corporate Democrats, right, more control over this party, right, is basically to kind of not kind of support those movements. Right, and to kind of go off and do your own thing. That's my thought on it.
Yeah.
So, whatever. So more hate mail coming. last thing I want to say is that this fall, already looking ahead to the fall, if you remember that in this summer there was legislation that was being introduced called for the PA Promise. That is a tuition-free higher education through the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, right, PASHE, and through the community college system. That is going to be on the agenda come the fall, and there are rallies that are being planned at all the PASHE campuses and other locations across the state this fall. So we're going to be covering that quite a bit as we hit the fall, because this is one of these kind of concrete pieces of legislation that is going to make a substantial difference in the lives of so many people if we can push this past. And I could guarantee, number one, right, Wagner will shoot that down, right? So get that in your head. Number two, that there are some candidates out there that that we need to support, right, that are supporting of that progressive agenda moving forward. So that's just something to put on your radar. Know that's coming and look out for that. Follow what's going on with the PA Student Power Network, right? They are gearing up. They've had all sorts of trainings all summer long. They were at some of the folks were at that Wagner rally that you were at. They've been at these political rallies. They're kind of doing political education and preparing for the fall. They hit the ground running as soon as we hit that. So kind of look out for that. So cool. Anything else before you go to sleep, Sean?
No, nothing else.
All right. Excellent. Want to remind everybody that this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, and the best way that you can support this podcast, you can support the reporting of Sean Kitchen and our other writers, is to become a member of Raging Chicken Press by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Become a member as little as $5 a month. All right. When we come back, we're going to get into some kind of the national stuff while Sean takes a little snooze, may go take some pictures of some herons. We'll be back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1877. That was the day striking railroad workers in Chicago clashed with police in the Battle of the Halsted Street Viaduct. The Great Railroad Strike had reached the nation's railroad hub and began there 3 days earlier. Switchmen from the Michigan Central traveled to freight shops in yards across the city, calling workers out to strike. Soon, lumber shovers, butchers, and industrial workers joined the strike. By the time the battle began, police had already clashed with unarmed strikers twice. Historian Richard Schneveroff describes the scene leading up to the battle. The city was now preparing itself for a full-scale insurrection, even though violent confrontations were rooted in police attacks on non-violent crowds. Previous confrontations centered in the railroad yards. Now, striker actions spilled over into the neighborhood of Pilsen, where they live. Thousands gathered along Halsted Street between 12th and 16th Streets. The police arrived attempting to disperse the crowd. They chased the strikers south and, as Schneveroff describes, emptied their revolvers into the masses of humanity. The crowd pelted the police with stones in defense and chased them over the viaduct. As word spread of the pitched battle, stockyard workers from nearby Bridgeport walked off the job. They marched along Halsted Street with butcher knives in hand to support the strikers under attack. The crowd on Halsted swelled to more than 10,000 as workers continued to battle police. By evening, 30 workers had been shot dead. Hundreds more were seriously wounded. But the strike continued to spread more fiercely. Streetcar stockmen, stone cutters, gas workers, glass cutters, and others joined the strike. The city was shut down for another week until railroad bosses finally rescinded wage cuts. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out the Coop podcast. Here we are with the Bass Ackwards day of fun here at the podcast. We threw all our Wagner stuff up front because one, it was the coolest thing to happen this week, and two, because Sean is tired and he wants to spend some Twitter time during the segment, right? And he gets a little frustrated sometimes when he has to wait. So here we are. As he gets all uncomfortable. And by the way, if you're listening to the show and suddenly you hear this kind of rumbling sound, what that is that's Sean scrolling through his Twitter feed and it resonating in his microphone in the show. That's what that is. Just so you know, right? It's not a technical problem, right? It's an attention problem, right? So I'm just saying. But right at the top of this for me, I just want to say this up front because it was disgusting this week, and I'm glad to see the response for what it is. So Mark Janus, you recall, the guy who was behind the whole Janus versus ASME case, right? Who basically says that his free speech rights were being violated because he was forced to pay fair share thing. He was not a member of the union, but he was basically. He got the same contract that union members got. He got the same pension that the union members got. He got the same protections, right, and the kind of support that the union members got, right? So that's what he had to pay for, and that's because under law, right, not only unions cannot force you to join the union, right? However, laws in many states say that if you have a union shop, right, in other words, if the members vote to be a union, the union is then the exclusive representative of everyone, right? Union members or non-members. So in other words, everyone gets that same contract, right? So the union, under law, still has to fight for the rights of those people who are non-members. If the person hates the union, if that person's rights are being violated, if they're not getting paid right, if the boss is screwing them over, the union still has to represent them. And when they go to negotiate and they kind of negotiate contracts, right, the union does not discriminate between whether you're a union member or not when it comes to your salary, when it becomes your pension, when it becomes your medical benefits, when it becomes your protections under the contract, right? So law has found, settled law, right, has said that you had to, pay a fair share. You couldn't be a free rider. Well, Mark Janus basically said, no, I want to be a free rider because my poor free speech rights. Right. If you listen to some interviews with this guy, by the way, after the fact, it's unclear that he ever even understood what the hell he was getting into at the beginning point. But there was people like this place, the Illinois Policy Institute, that helped bankroll his suit, right? So he decides after the Supreme Court settles this and after he got his thing, now he's able to stand up for workers everywhere. Now he doesn't have to join their union. What does he do? He freaking retires with his union won pension and benefits, right? I don't know how freaking despicable you need to be, right? But that's what he does. And what does he do? He becomes a senior fellow, probably meaning sitting on your ass doing nothing but showing up and being a kind of freaking billboard for what the right wing is doing. But a senior fellow at the Illinois Policy Institute, the people that freaking bankrolled him, and he's going to be making about I don't know exactly.
6 figures probably.
He's going to be making some good money.
Yeah. So the Illinois Policy Institute is part of the State Policy Network, which is a group of think tanks funded by groups like the Koch brothers and the Scaife and Donors Trust. And, these are the exact same people that are operating here in Pennsylvania underneath the Commonwealth Foundation Americans for Fair Treatment, which is the anti-union group that's going to be trying to get teachers and public union workers to opt out of their union memberships here in Pennsylvania. And then also the Fairness Center as well, which is an anti-union funded think tank, which is also part of the State Policy Network that files these types of lawsuits here in Pennsylvania to go after unions and drain their resources.
Yep. So look, I mean, all this is coming our way now.
Right? One of the things I liked about this party is that 75 people showed up.
I didn't even say this about the party yet. We've got to tell them what the party is. So basically what it was is that they're looking for a way. He announces retirement. And look, people were pissed off, right, that he screws them over, right, and then leaves, right, retires. So the union, right, decides to throw him a retirement party, but it's a members-only retirement party. So they have a big cake, happy, a retirement, Mark Janus, but he's not invited to the party. Yeah.
Yes. And 75, 80 union members showed up to the union-only retirement party, while only 2 people showed up to Janus's his retirement party. And frankly, this is how we should treat scabs in the workplace.
Yep.
And some people think that's uncivil or, it's not right to treat people like that. No, fuck these people. This is how you treat scabs. You ostracize them and you make them feel unwanted inside the workplace if they're going to be doing this.
Look, and I'm telling you, I know that there's people, look, from my own experience, right? We had a strike, right, at Kutztown University and all the state system of higher education through ABSCUF, right? And there was members and there were some people, we have a very high percentage of our faculty who are members of ABSCUF, right? There's a small percentage that are non-members, right? But when there's a difference between, like, if you're making an individual choice, I can try to persuade you about why unionization, becoming a member, is actually good for you. At the very baseline, why would you want to give up your right to vote, right? And have it kind of influence of what it is at the very baseline. Regardless, is that if you choose not to be a member of a union, right? You pay your fair share, whatever. I'm going to disagree with you, right? I'm going to say I'll try to kind of persuade you, but that's that. It's fundamentally different when you do something like what Mark Janus did, is that not only do you say you don't want to be a member of union, but you basically become the poster boy for destroying the union for everyone else, right? That you deserve ostracization and goes on. Or, for that matter, when we had our strike, right, there are faculty members, right, who are non-members, right, but when we went on strike, they stayed back, right? They didn't report to work. Right, because they at least respected that. Now, there are other ones that say cross the line, right, and then kind of want to keep on working. I have less sympathy for those people. There's still some people I don't talk to, right? If you're actually, say, there's a strike that's going on, and you're some sort of outside group, has no affiliation with the split, and you come into scab, then you're doing the same kind of thing with Mark Janus. You're attempting to destroy a union, and that's the kind of crap that you can no longer afford. And this is going to be heating up over right here in Pennsylvania, folks. It's going to be heating up big time, like yesterday. So crazy. So the good news, right, is that because we're in this kind of environment, that you need some kind of like fighting spirit, right? You need
and backbone.
What's that?
And backbone.
And backbone, right? You need
spine.
Backbone, you need a spine, you need a fighting spirit, you need a program, you need to excite people. Well, that's exactly what the corporate Democrats did. They tried to do through this conference that they held in Ohio this past week. It was called Opportunity 2020. Right? Now, check this out. This was sponsored by Third Way, which are the people that gave us the kind of spineless Democrats that are kind of sucking up the Wall Street. Right, the Clintonians and all that kind of stuff. Right, Bill Clinton. What's that?
The Clintonistas.
Yeah, there you go. Right, that was all that. So it was sponsored by that Third Way, right, and billionaire real estate developer Winston Fisher, right. And what was hilarious about this thing is that they basically said, we've got to stop Bernieisms. They had all these different names for it, right? We had the Bernie wing of the party, and we have to beat that back, right?
Even after last week, we talked that like 60% of Democrats want their Democrats to be more like Bernie Sanders.
Right. And so what they're going to do, Sean, is that they're going to go out and do some language testing and message testing, right? But they've got no program. Right, they came out. The reason why that they're running for their lives right now, and they're so worried, and why billionaires, by the way, those Wall Street wing of the Democratic Party are pouring money into organizations like Third Way right now, has to do because they know they've got nothing.
They're fucking scared of Ocasio-Cortez, the DSA.
They're terrified. Right. And so listen to that. So as they emerge from this big, think session, right, some of the quotes were just absolutely hilarious. Coming out there, interviewing people saying, we got to have a big debate in the party. Frankly, the debate probably should have started sooner. And we're going to figure out what it is that we're going to say in our debate. Like, they had nothing. It was astounding. Right. That
we're going to come up with our debate.
Right.
A couple weeks before the 2020 election.
Right. Some of the interviews were like, they were talking to some of the participants saying like, so we're going to use more words like opportunity. Right. We're going to use more words like flexibility. We're not going to kind of like, do the class war because we want to be rich too. Right. I mean, seriously.
And we don't want health care for everyone.
No.
Health care for everyone means we don't make money.
We want the opportunity for people to have health care. We don't want people to have health care.
Yeah.
Those are different things. Right. So here were their big ideas.
These are like, as I said, these are the Tony Blairites of Labor Party.
Yes.
That are just, they see what's coming and they're going to be just ran out of fucking town.
Right.
Like by the Jeremy Corbyns and the Bernie Sanders of the world. Like I've been saying this for the past couple of years now. Like watch what's happening in the labor fight over in England with Jeremy Corbyn, because the Tony Blairites, which are Third Way people, are trying to do everything they can to discredit and destroy and dismantle the DSA, to go after Ocasio-Cortez. It's already happening now. To go after Bernie Sanders, saying he's not a real Democrat. And like they are scared because they see what's happening over in England, which is you have an actual party with an actual fucking spine right now.
Well, and they're not, and it's not just because what's happening in England. Now it's happening here, and that's that's got them terrified. Like, I think they've been sitting on the laurels for a little bit, being like, kind of like, oh yeah, but it's happening. Oh, we should worry about this. But now they're the party's actually being taken over right now.
I think what's going to help them win in 2020, if they run the same campaign, say we're not Donald Trump, vote for us.
Yeah,
that's our platform. We're not him.
No, Sean, they've got more than that. Right, they've got more than that. It's not just that, right? I mean, it's not just that. It's not just Russia. It's not just that, right? But here's the deal.
It's a better deal.
No, look, the better deal. And here were some of those big ideas that they came out of the special session, billionaire-backed, funded, third way funded conference, Opportunity 2020. These were some of the centrist Democrats. This is what they're going to fight on. They want a venture capital-like bank to give out loans to the poor. Right, so you want to venture capitalize and profitize loans to the poor. Number one. Number two, they have some sort of weird, vague apprenticeship program, right? And a for-profit retirement fund, right? Which will be great, right? And a for-profit
instead of just strengthening Social Security,
right? No. But that's the thing. But here's the thing: you got a for-profit retirement fund, right? Which may or may not be something like what we used to call a pension, right? Sounds more what Wall Street does. But don't worry about your retirement, because you're going to have the opportunity, right? If you're not going to get your Social Security or your retirement, you're going to have the opportunity to join an AmeriCorps-like program for retirees. Right, it's the Boomer Corps, folks. Right, so you're going to send 70-year-olds out there to kind of dig ditches in communities to help poor people get their loans from their venture capital banks.
Jimmy Carter is still playing house stuff at 92.
Dude.
So
yeah, so why can't everybody else? Just the Boomers, man. Right, they're the active seniors, right? So, I mean, I was astounded. I couldn't even believe that they recognize that their rhetoric of the past 40 years is so freaking bankrupt right now that this is the best they can do.
Yeah. Instead of strengthening Social Security, expanding Medicaid to 55 and Medicare for all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, did you see this whole report from this Yeah, and did you see the whole thing from the Daily Caller reporter that went into one of Ocasio-Cortez's?
Yeah, she's like, I was scared because they're actually talking about things that everyone wants.
She's like, I can't believe it. I'm saying, as a mother, right, I was nervous because they're talking about things like, getting making sure that your child has health care, and making sure your child has education, and making sure that
people think people want.
I mean, they're talking about things that people want. And I'm like, is this a parody? I mean, is this because, and you could almost it was the weirdest interview that she did with Fox and Friends, because it's she's sitting there talking about this stuff, and the look on her face is kind of confused. She's like, okay, these words are coming.
Wow, it's actually a winning message, and they're doing this in the middle of Kansas.
Yeah, and
this is this brown-skinned Brooklyn girl coming out here from the Bronx.
Exactly,
this brown-skinned Bronx girl coming from the Bronx, and she's going to be and when Tammy Duckworth says shit like this doesn't, this is just a Bronx thing.
Yeah, right.
No, it's not.
You got this mom from the Daily Caller sitting there getting all confused because she's saying these words and saying, I kind of want those for my kids. She's like, I might have to think about a career change here. And she's like, by the end of the interview, she's practically saying Ocasio-Cortez. It's like,
I know, and to background, Ocasio-Cortez was in Kansas doing this.
Yes.
Which, probably scares the living daylight out of people.
Yeah, they're going around. I mean, there you go. I mean, I think, and what's great, she goes to the important part about this too as well is that, because I've said this before, I get really concerned when we start talking about celebrity politics, and she is freaking dynamic as all hell. Right, but she is not Jesus, folks. Right, and she just get that crap out of your head. We got to purge that kind of thinking from there. Right, she's incredibly dynamic, incredibly capable, an amazing politician. She's energizing the base and all that other kind of stuff. But let's remember, the reason why she's in Kansas is because there's been people on the ground organizing in Kansas. Right, there was a place for her to go and a candidate for her to support because of the organizing for activists on the ground. Never ever forget that.
And the one thing that this lady said from the Daily Caller, which I think is the most important part, she said, people are so tired and so literally physically tired of being angry and don't know what to do, whether they find it's a lot easier to actually join a movement and not be angry and not waste your energy being angry, but actually like put that anger and passion towards building a grassroots progressive movement.
She was practically like campaigning for Ocasio-Cortez, because you can imagine there's people like watching, right, who are not like diehard committed like Fox Watch, but just have that on or whatever, and looking at that being like, that sounds kind of good. What? Who is this person?
Yeah,
it's nuts.
But you know what's really going to do it?
I have an idea, but tell me.
I think going after the yoga vote will really do this.
Yep, sponsored by Lululemon yoga pants, everyone. There you go. So this is Ohio Democratic Representative Tim Ryan. Okay, so as part of this, he was at the Opportunity 2020 conference, right?
And this is the guy who wants to become the next House Speaker,
right? And now listen. Okay, I want to be clear. I don't want to be misunderstood here. All this, the kind of stuff, the yoga stuff, the mindfulness stuff, and all that kind of stuff. I think that stuff is really, really awesome, right? So I'm not trying to knock yoga and mindfulness and all this stuff. And he's actually been an interesting character because, well, see, Sean's mocking it. I'm not. So, but he's been an interesting character in the sense that he's tried to bring some of that stuff, in Congress, and he's got these little mindfulness sessions or whatever. And that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool, right? I think it's kind of cool that he does that. But whatever, right? That's a lifestyle thing. We can put that aside. But so he comes up, and again, a lot of the interviews of the people said, we're going to look our candidate that we're going to run, and we got to find a challenge Bernie. But then they ask, well, who's your short list, right? And they're all like, can we get back to you on that, right? We're still, I don't know, right? And so Tim Ryan,
we're still 2 years out,
right? Well, Tim Ryan's kind of ahead of the curve on this one, and he's already basically saying that he's going to be in the presidential race for 2020, and he wants this centrist group to kind of get out there. So his argument, right, is that it's going to be the yoga vote.
He's going to go after Republicans. This is the same thing that okay, so I'm going to take the extreme negative approach on this. You could stop me, but the thing that really we said this on our podcast literally in March of 2016 when we first launched this, that Hillary Clinton was going after the neocons, the war hawks, and the moderate Republicans in Pennsylvania. She would put up a Facebook, a microsite of all the Pennsylvania war hawks and neocons and moderate Republicans who are endorsing her, and really going for that centrist moderate Republicans who never voted for her.
Right.
And now we're seeing in polls that Trump's approval ratings are going up, not because of independents or Democrats supporting him, but because Republicans are all coalescing around him. Mm-hmm. And he has a 90% approval rating within the Republican Party, and only 10 So you can see that this is team Republicans coming out here that are these moderate Republicans and Democrats it's their unicorn pretty much. They're golden unicorn, and they're not going to break this way. And my thing is white college educated women, suburban women voted for Trump, right? It's one of the reasons why Trump won. And it's this theory of going after moderate Republicans. And it's this it completely flies in the face of what the theory of the new American majority is, which is black and brown voters, single mothers, and especially women of color. And you coalesce these together with your white base within the Democratic Party. These are the people that are going to bring you Democratic majorities, right? We saw this happen. It wasn't because white women gave Doug Jones the Senate seat in Alabama. No, it was black and brown women who did that.
Right.
And this is anyone who thinks that they're going to win on the yoga vote are fooling themselves, and anyone who votes for him are also fooling themselves, because it's just a stupid fucking strategy.
Yeah, well, but Sean, you're forgetting.
Oh, he's a doctor.
No.
Now this isn't going. Now, I mean, yes, I'm out here in central Pennsylvania, and the Harrisburg suburbs have voted for Democrat for the first time ever this in 2016, and Trump has motivated a lot of privileged white women to get involved in politics, and a lot of women in the suburbs are doing that. And yes, they probably will carry the elections for Democrats, but by saying you're going after the yoga vote, you are just writing off the list of the Latinos vote, the black and brown women, the single mothers. Like, that's who you're writing off, which is part of the New American Majority.
No, right.
And it's called New American Majority because...
People think you might flip the House and Senate this November, but you guys always find a way to mess it up. You're somehow going to lose by 12 points to a guy named Jeff Pedophile Nazi Doctor. Oh, he's a doctor.
And that's exactly it. And here's the thing. This is the one like nuance I want to put on what you just said, right? Is that for me, what I think is okay. Here's the deal, right? What came out of this opportunity 2020 and all these centrist Democrats and all these corporate Democrats, what they want to say is they want to. And this Tim Ryan actually said this, right? Tim Ryan actually said as part of his pitch to kind of be their candidate, they'll charge their banner, whatever their freaking Saks Fifth Avenue banner forward to 2020, is that he basically said, enough of this class warfare. We're not going to go after the rich. Hell, I want to be rich, right? That was his line, right? And that's the people he's appealing to. So the claim is from these people that Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, right, and Fetterman, all these people are divisive, right? Now the problem with that language is that plays well in their little circle, but in reality, what they're doing is they're saying by going after the yoga vote, right, by going after their unicorns, right, they want to say they're doing that at the exclusion, right, of the rest of those folks, right. And that's the difference, because the thing is, I do think, right, and studies show this out, right, bear this out, is that since Trump's election, and because of the Women's March, and because of Indivisible, and because of the mass amount of kind of young women that have been getting involved with politics, right, and some of those suburban women that have kind of been more or less disengaged from politics, right, at least some of the studies suggest, right, will kind of vote for kind of what they're feeling, have kind of joined and kind of become part of that political process, right? So this is not an either or. It's either you go after the kind of progressive agenda that you see someone like Ocasio-Cortez kind of articulating, like Bernie Sanders articulating, at the exclusion of those women. No. It's saying and those women, right? And there's been nothing in the campaigns, right, that are in the the progressive wing of the party that have been saying, no, we don't want like progressive white women from the suburbs to come and join this. And it's not that kind of deal. Like, they're the ones with the big tent. It's the people like these third way people that want to maintain an exclusivity of party power.
Yes. I mean, like, the reason why Republicans have won and are really good at winning is because they did not cast their base aside. Their base is bigoted, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, anything out there. But you know what? They still pander to that base, even though that base is dragging them further and further to the right into like this fascistic way. And what are Democrats thinking they're going to do? Democrats, they cast the progressive base off the side. You know, the only unity they want is the progressives to vote for their candidates regardless of who. You know, and the Democrats are going to keep on losing because they cast their base off to the side.
Yep.
And they chase these moderate Republicans who are being dragged further and further to the right.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And that's, we're going to see this play out in Pennsylvania in big time, I think. Not just this election in 2018, but I mean, right from now through the, through the 2020 election and beyond. This is going to be playing out as the Democratic Party in the state is getting reshaped. And I would say is that the key thing to watch throughout this process is how different candidates, right, and then politicians are responding to particular issues, right? So we talked about the Janus stuff, and we're going to see all sorts of anti-worker legislation coming forward. What's it going to be? Is it going to be we need more opportunity, or is it going to be we're going to defend workers' lives? Is it going to be like, hey, maybe we should find a way to kind of add on a little bit more medical benefit, or is it going to be Medicare for all? Is it going to be affordable tuition where people can actually make their payment, or is it going to be free college tuition? Right? That is how this is going to play itself out, and that's where the dynamic debates in politics are right now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So watch that. So I want to just a couple things to pay attention to, or that I've been paying attention to at least this past week. Look, there's a lot of stuff that's in the news, right? And I'm not going to go rehash all the freaking is Michael Cohen flipped or not? Blah blah blah. I really whatever. We're going to find that stuff out. But there's little things that are disturbing that have come to the fore that are kind of important. One is that Sean has reported a lot on Turning Point USA, right? Being that kind of right-wing, billionaire-backed kind of like organization about infiltrating college campuses to help kind of turn things to the extreme right.
And there's alt-right.
Right, alt-right people, all that stuff. So there was that conference in D.C. this past week, right? And Jeff Sessions, of course, right, because he is the kind of like, the racist in power, the overt racist in power, and he's the head of the judicial like Department of Justice, which drives me freaking nuts. Our Attorney General, right? He shows up there, right? And basically, first he bashes college students who were kind of like, he does all the things that you say colleges are, coddling their people, whatever, blah, 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 all that kind of garbage. And then he says, you are going to stand up. You're not the ones who are going to need a kind of a special sessions to talk about, therapy dogs or whatever like this. And the crowd starts chanting, lock her up. And Sessions, he says, lock her up. And then he kind of catches himself that he actually said that. And he's smiling, trying not to join the chant, and he says, I heard that a lot. I heard that a lot.
It's like catnip.
Exactly. He could barely contain himself. Right?
You're going to the jail.
Right, exactly. That's what he wants everybody to know. Oh, wait.
You're going to the jail. That's a felony also.
Right? And this is what this dude is about, man. This is what this dude is about, and he's the head of our Justice Department of Justice, which is freaking crazy. So there was that took place, right? The fact that you've got Sessions going to Turning Point USA is the important thing here, right? Not just that Sessions is kind of basically turning that office into kind of like political witch hunt mechanism, but also because he's at Turning Point USA.
The only witches out there are the witches going after Donald Trump in the Russiagate, okay?
Yeah, well, okay, of course. That's true. That's true. That's true. Lots of witches. There's witches everywhere.
Do you know how you could tell if a witch is a witch?
Please do tell.
If they're the same weight as a duck.
We definitely got to pull that sound. I've got to pull that sound. I keep on meaning to pull the sound. If anybody, I'm not going to spoil it. Like we just leave it like that. If the witch is the same weight as a duck, then it's a witch, right? You figure it out. We'll have that sound for you soon. Oh man, I love that. Couple more things from the national stuff, from the Trump orbit. Today, Thursday, July 26th is the deadline, and it's the extended deadline. That the Trump organization has been ordered to reunite families, and there is no way in hell that's going to happen by today. And so we've had kidnapped children. Some children have been away from their parents for months now. And anyone who's been working on this, the lawyers have been working on these cases and things like this, saying the government doesn't even have a record of which kid belongs to which parents, and have the parents been deported already or not, or where are they? So they're theoretically, especially if these parents fled, say, El Salvador or Nicaragua or Honduras or whatever like this, in these fled violence, and they return, and if that parent is then killed as a result of bringing back, that child will never have a parent again. Right? That there are parents that may not see their kids now for years on end, because there's no way that they have of kind of finding and tracking down where their children or child is. That's where we're at as a country, right? We kidnap children, we strip them from their parents, and then we got to send we have no way of bringing them back together.
But may I say something?
Yeah, go.
I'm sure the third way will figure out some technocratic way of getting these back together while keeping ICE and other mechanisms in place.
Sean, we don't need to reunify families with their children that have been stripped from them. We just need the opportunity for families and children to reunite. Yeah. See the difference in that? That's why this freaking nonsense about opportunity crap is just nonsense. But that happens. That's important, and that's going to go crazy now. The last thing I want to bring out is for the Trump stuff is that the Maria Butina case. Right now, she is the one. She's a 29-year-old Russian. She's the Russian gun nut. Who now it's been coming out is that she was known in the NRA circles as the cool girl, the cool NRA girl, because she would love to kind of like look sexy and hold
She's
weapons.
this good-looking 29-year-old coming up to me, offering favors.
Right, and she's carrying a sniper rifle at the same time.
Like, the one thing I want to realize is like, well, yes, these people are this stupid, but like, how stupid do you have to? Like, you can't put two and two together with this, or like, not even two and two. It's too hard. 1 and 1. Like, oh, good-looking Russian girl offering 56-year-old man favors. Maybe she wants to have sex with me or not. I don't know.
Yep.
Like,
all I know, she likes guns, and I like guns, and that makes her crazy.
You don't think she might have been a spy or an agent with the?
Seriously, I mean, this case has gotten interesting because
the tens of millions of dollars that the NRA got
exactly
funneled to them from Russian sources.
Right, exactly. So here's the kind of deal, and I'm going to butcher these names, and I'm sorry. Right, so this recently in the Guardian. Right, so there's wait, actually, let me see if I pull this up and make it a little bit easier on me. I'm probably not going to do it, right? Let's see here. Nope, it's not going to make it easier on me, so I'm just going to go back to where it was. Okay, so there's this woman, her name is Svetlana Nikolaev. All right, she's the head of a gun company that supplies sniper rifles to the Russian military intelligence services. Right, and there's actually pictures of Maria Butina actually like holding these rifles from this company. All right, so now Svetlana Nikolaev husband is Konstantin Nikolaev, right, who is one of these Russian billionaires, who is one of the people that is helping fund, right, Maria Butina, right? And prosecutors are saying that her actions were actually being directed by Alexander Torshin, right, an or a senior Russian state banker and an NRA member as well. So you've got these Russian billionaires, right, that kind of got in and sent money to the NRA, right, became members of the NRA. You have this woman who's connected to both of them actually enter into the NRA as their kind of like point person, right, and funding what. If any of these documents pan out, right, as they're kind of coming out with basically funding what it looks like as an intelligence stings, as using her as a way of infiltrating the NRA and funneling money from these billionaires into the Trump campaign, and basically attempting to kind of influence election. So this is really interesting. As the way this stuff is played out. And yeah, there's kind of always that, the side appeal of kind of like, using sex as a way of kind of like, coming in there, that's been getting a lot of attention. The more interesting part about it, this, like for me, it has to do with that this is actually connecting the dots to some of the most extreme right-wing politics in the United States, billionaire-backed NRA, right, and the billionaire-backed folks over there in Russia. So, I mean, this, if you want to talk about collusion, is like this is where we might end up with this stuff. And, the fact that this case begins to take down the NRA at the same time, that'd be phenomenal. One thing that's been interesting about that, the NRA has not said boo about this case since the charges dropped, which is completely uncharacteristic of how they deal with anything.
Yeah, a little tight-lipped.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting.
Who wasn't tight-lipped?
Do tell.
Jason Spencer.
Oh
Georgia.
My God, Jason Spencer. Well, listen. Before we get to Jason Spencer, let me just say this. I want to give kudos out to there's a bunch of stuff like I mentioned. I'm going to have links about some of the reports about the oligarchy stuff there. They'll be in our show notes. But I want to give a shout out to this Swedish woman, who actually boarded a plane in Sweden to prevent a man from Afghanistan being deported, right? To most likely certain death. Okay. Her name is Ellen Arison, I believe. And she basically streamed this Facebook Live video about her refusing to take her seat, right? And because she said the pilot had the ability to make sure that this person was not going to be deported, they'd get off the plane, to be protected, all this, would not leave the airspace, all this kind of stuff. And it went crazy viral, right? And she's getting justified kudos for what she did. What is getting less attention right, which I think needs to have more attention. It's kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, is that she was not just some sort of like random person who just felt something and responded to this. No, she has been volunteering with refugee groups for about a year now. In 2015, like 163,000 people, this is from The Guardian, basically sought refuge in Sweden, including 30,000 unaccompanied minors. But the government has been pursuing a deportation policy, especially of Afghans. Right. So she's been going to school for social work and working with refugees. She's been part of activist organizations that were attempting to protect refugees. And what had happened as part of this, how she got on that plane, was because they got word that there was this young man that was about to be deported and was going to be on that plane. So she and her activist friends basically began a pooled money to buy her a ticket to get on that plane to prevent that from happening. Right, and that was part of what. Now it turns out that the one guy that she was ended up protecting was not the one that she was originally went there to try to protect. There had been several Afghans on that plane. He was not on that plane. That the young one, there was another Afghan guy who was being deported. So she went and talked to him and find out what his story was, and said, no, okay, we're going to go through this anyways. And she live streamed that, and that made a huge detention. That is huge. I would love to see some of that kind of stuff begin to happen in the United States if we kind of come up there. But kudos to her, and kudos to the young folks all over the world right now who are taking the lead upon any kind of progressive future and really putting themselves on the line and saying this is what it's going to take. It's not enough to have good ideas, that you have to actually, again, Mario Savio said it, right? Put your bodies on the gears of the machine and make it stop. So kudos to her. So yeah, Georgia, the Georgia Peach himself. Jason Spencer. Oh, Sean, take it from here.
Just like to say, people got to check out Sacha Baron's new TV show.
Sacha Baron Cohen's, yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen's The Who Is America. Yeah, can't really say much about Jason Spencer. I thought it was great. I thought it was an awesome clip. He's like, I love when Cohen goes, Sacha Baron Cohen's, I'm with Mossad, not with Mossad.
Yeah, he's like, I've been working with Mossad for not working with Mossad for 13 years. Yes, exactly. So people haven't seen this yet. And, again, this is about this Georgia state representative who basically was sponsoring all sorts of like anti-burqa legislation, face covering legislation, racist dude, all this kind of stuff. Sacha Baron Cohen targets him, and basically, I guess apparently there had been some threats supposedly that this guy has faced about from the ISIS or whatever. And so Sacha Baron Cohen poses as a Mossad agent, former Mossad agent, not a Mossad agent, right? And gets this guy to take part in an anti-terrorism training, like how to protect yourself from ISIS. And it's absurd, right? Gets this guy to shout the N-word multiple times. This guy pulls down his pants and kind of charges Sacha Baron Cohen with his buttocks, because Baron Cohen basically says that, he's the ISIS are afraid of bare buttocks because they're afraid it'll turn them into homosexuals. Anyways, this guy just goes hook, line, and sinker on this thing, in part because of the warped worldview. And then he originally says, "No, I'm not gonna resign," but then he ends up resigning.
I could probably name 10 people in the Pennsylvania House who are dumb enough to fall for this.
Daryl Metcalf.
I could totally see him, man.
That's one. I think Aaron Bernstein, who promised to run protesters over, sitting on the street, is another.
There you have it, man.
I have to look through the names, but I could find at least 8 more.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Stosh.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. But and it's crazy to see this. First, I mean, these people are. You watch that video. If you watch that video, and you can check it out online, everybody. There's gonna be a link again here in the show notes, and just put yourself in that guy's position. Even if you agreed to do this stuff, and you have a camera on you rolling, and you are a willing participant in this video. And the guy tells you, first of all, if you look at him, the guy, it looks like there's no freaking way this guy is for real, right? I mean, he's such a caricature of a Mossad agent. I mean, it's crazy. And the guy tells you that, in the Mossad we say, not in the Mossad we say, if you want to win, show some skin. You got to pull down your pants and charge me with your bare ass. And
that's a red flag.
If I just don't know how. I don't know how you get past yourself and say like, no, I didn't know what I was doing. There's no answer to that. I mean, there is no way you could respond to that other than like I'm an asshole. I gotta go.
You are like the House Speaker of the Georgia House Speaker, and you're watching this go down in real time, like on TV.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you that his phones were just like blowing up at that point.
Can you imagine like the distance between this guy's chin and the desk, like just evaporating, like bong, like oh my god, I'm on. I gotta deal with this.
I'm just gonna turn my phone off.
I'm just gonna go cry someplace and come back here and figure out what the hell I'm gonna do.
I'm gonna turn my phone off. Make sure my alarm clock is on. I'll just wake up in the morning and deal with it.
Oh my god, oh my god, that's crazy. Yeah. So just did you see this thing about or you told me about this before we went on air about the soccer ball. You got to tell people the soccer ball. This is great.
Pretty much, Putin gave Trump a soccer ball might have a transmitter chip in it.
You guys get that? Because soccer balls have these little transmitters in there that basically can determine whether or not it crossed the goal, or there's for it's a replay. But then there's big questions about whether or not that has been can be hacked or not. Right? It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And we're going to close out this too as well because Sean's giving me the high sign. It's time for him to go. So we go. Billy Joel. This just came up. This was from Noisy. Now apparently, when there are these deportations and these first Charlottesville kind of came up basically when Charlottesville happened. Billy Joel was on tour. And he showed up on stage, right, with a yellow Star of David, right, like from basically the Holocaust, like showed up on stage. Now Billy Joel has he's been one of these performers who's avoided politics at all costs, right? But he gave in this interview, he said, to me, what happened in Charlottesville was like a war. When Trump said that there were good people on both sides. He's like, there are no good Nazis. There are no good Ku Klux Klan people. Don't equivocate that shit, is what Billy Joel says. And this is how he explains it. He said, I think about my old man. Most of his family was murdered in Auschwitz. He was able to get out of there, but then got drafted and went in the U.S. Army. He risked his life in Europe to defeat Nazism. A lot of men from his generation did the same thing. So when those guys see punks walking around with swastikas, how do they keep from taking a baseball bat and bashing those crypto Nazis over the head? Those creeps are going to march through the streets of my country. Billy Joel, folks, the piano man, stepping into it. So it's crazy. One thing that this popped up, I'm not going to talk about it now, but maybe we'll talk about it next week. Steve Bannon's been back in the news. He is now attempting to build a network called The Movement in Europe, basically to support the extreme right wing in Europe. My friend Stu, who also sent me the thing for the BBC about Sean's story about Wagner, also has been sending me some stuff about that. Bannon is attempting to stoke the flames of right wing extremism in Europe right now too as well. We'll have more on that maybe next week. So anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
Nope.
All right. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be right back with this week's Let's Go! This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull-no-punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back, everybody. It's Raging Chickens Out to Coop. Let's call, where we talk about space news, beer, and any other kind of like rando stuff that kind of is going on right now. Space news right up front, everybody. Kind of a cool Mars week. As the BBC and others have been reporting, that it looks like NASA is basically showing that it looks like they think they've got evidence that there is a lake actually with liquid water, right, found on Mars. It's underground water, and it's basically under the South Pole cap, ice cap on Mars. So that's kind of pretty cool stuff, right? It's part of a new study they have. They've been noticing for a while that there's been kind of like these intermittent signs of liquid water flowing on the Martian surface, but haven't really been able to see it, haven't been able to tell, okay, is this something that's current or whatever? It looks like there's something. But sure enough, it looks like it's sitting under the South Polar ice cap, and it seems to be about 12 miles across, which is just kind of pretty cool stuff. Especially that's kind of coming out. That was actually, I should say, that's from discovery was made from the European Space Agency's Mars Express orbiter, which was doing some imaging of the South Pole and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool news. This is coming the same week that tomorrow night, Friday night, Mars will reach opposition, and basically that's when it's kind of closest to Earth, but it's going to be the closest to Earth that it's been since 2003. If anybody remembers back to 2003, that's when Mars was basically closer than it's been in something like thousands of years or something like this. So it's not going to get that close, but it's going to be really close. And if you've been watching the sky at all, it's been hard here in Pennsylvania, given the fact that it's been, or eastern Pennsylvania at least, because it's been freaking downpours every day. But Mars has been like super bright. And that's going to come to a peak on Friday, and goes for like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, kind of through the weekend. You'll be able to get some really great images of Mars. We're going to put some links in the show notes about from Earth Sky and from space.com about some apps you can use if you want to kind of check it out, where to find it with your telescope and that kind of stuff. It's really cool.
So will Mars be like the same size as the moon?
It'd be exactly the same size of the moon, right? So it'd be exactly.
I saw a couple of people posting that like link around again. I'm just like, come on.
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's like, really, it's like you don't even check the dates on your stuff, people, right? Because you're like, whatever, this was a fraud that was going, whatever. But speaking of the moon, it's going to be the longest blood moon so far of the 21st century on Friday. We're not going to be able to see it in North America, but still just kind of cool. It's going to be like almost 2 hours long. The moon is going to be in a total eclipse over good parts of, say, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So if you're into that stuff, they're going to be streaming all sorts of stuff online for that. That's the only way you're going to see it in North America. You will get to see Mars, however. In other news, which we've been following the development of the Space Force, there was an interview that Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson was doing with David Ignatius of the Washington Post. And David Ignatius was really pushing hard on her to basically talk about what the new Trump Space Force proposal is going to do to the reorganization of the Air Force. Because right now the Air Force has a division which is, about space. And she kind of avoided it for the most part. But what was kind of, got a little crazy as part of that discussion was that she was getting really all excited about the war component of it. Right. So if you remember in we have that, I should have played it coming in here, but the Space Force, it's a war fighting domain. She seemed to be pretty interested in that. So this is from Space News. So in that interview with David Ignatius, she says, quote, or this is from the article, the secretary reiterated comments she had made in the past about how much more attention is being paid to space as a, quote, war fighting domain. Unquote. She noted that political climate has changed. When Wilson was going through the Senate confirmation process in early 2017, Pentagon officials would not allow her to mention space and warfighting domain in the same sentence, she recalled. Quote, now I have the president, the vice president, the establishment of a national space council, a national security strategy, all aligned on that issue. Quote, the most important thing is to stay focused on the warfighter and maintaining the lethality of the service no matter how the org chart boxes go. It's all about the ability to fight. There you go, man. So the Space Force is gearing up, as absurd as that sounds, and it looks like the Secretary of the Air Force is all behind that. So there you go. Good old Heather Wilson will take us into that warfighting domain. Maybe connected to this, maybe not. The other news on this is that Skynet is gonna be for real. And matter of fact, at least Airbus announced this week that it is currently building a quote cyber secure network of airspace and ground communication systems that delivers huge amounts of bandwidth anywhere in the world for the purpose of military fighting in space. How about that? It's going to combine both government satellites and private satellites as through the whole network, and they're going to call it not Skynet, but they're going to call it Network for the Sky. So, this is where you can just cue every Terminator meme that you got. Like, what was science fiction at one point is now on the cusp of becoming reality. It's going to be having its first test coming up this week. So, coming up these weeks.
Can't wait.
There you go, man. There you go. Like, cue any kind of dystopic, like, future music right now. That's where it goes. But anyway, so that's my space news for the week. So I actually had the opportunity, Sean, to meet a friend of yours unexpectedly when I was coming back from kind of up the mountain area and passing through Wilkes-Barre this past week. It was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. You were telling me about that.
Yeah, so I stopped by. I've been wanting to do this for a while. It's like, one of these things that always goes through my head is like when I, go up kind of up the mountain area, there's really cool, very small breweries all throughout there and kind of really interesting craft brew scene and stuff. And there's this one in Wilkes-Barre. It's called the Breaker Brewing Company that I've been wanting to kind of go to, stop by for a long time. And on my way back, I had to go up. I basically had to drive like 2.5 hours up to the mountains and spend my whole day there, and then drive back 2.5 hours in the same day. And I was exhausted. I said, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself, right? And I'm gonna stop by. I'm gonna find this place, have dinner there. And I did. I had this amazing like buffalo mac and cheese, but I'll get into that. So I stopped by there. I sit down, I get like these little samples of the Rooibos, I think is how you say it, IPA, which was like a 7% alcohol American IPA. Another one that was called Pineapple Vanilla Dreamsicle, which was a New England IPA, that was really cool. Another one, which is totally, this will not be for everybody. I'll warn you ahead of time, but it was totally like in my lane. The Mindfire Blackberry Jalapeno Ale, which is a fruit beer. It had a nice jalapeno sharp taste in it. Loved it. And then finished it off with a Santa Fe Pils, a really nice Pilsner that was coming out there. So I'm sitting down. I'm having my buffalo mac and cheese. I'm sampling these great beers at Breaker Brewing Company at the bar. And the woman behind the bar points at my hat, which I wasn't even thinking about, says, "Raging Chicken Press, huh?" I said, "Yeah, you know it?" She's like, "You know Sean Kitchen?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know Sean Kitchen." Right, so we got to talking, and sure enough, that she knows you, and so we took a little selfie that she's going to send to you and all that stuff. So that was kind of like the double, triple bonus surprise like of the visit to Breaker Brewing Company in Wilkes-Barre.
Also, another place, she also bartends up there, is a place called Sabatini's, which is a bottle bar, one of the best bottle shops in the area, and it's in the Scranton area. Definitely recommend checking that out when next time you're up there.
What's it called again?
Sabatini's.
All right, we're going to try to put a link in the show notes.
It's a pizza place.
It's a what? I'm sorry, what?
It's a pizza place. It's a craft beer bar and a bottle shop.
It's in Scranton or Wilkes-Barre?
It's in the Scranton area.
Now I'll check it out.
I can look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up if you can. Drop a link just in the show notes that we got right now, and I'll put it in there too as well. So something else to check out for folks. So the other thing was they have got that was stuff
it's in Exeter.
In Exeter, okay, that's stuff they've got on tap that I was kind of sampling. But I also grabbed 2 4-packs, which I'm going to split with Sean, and that was kind of my double give there. So this one, I did have one of these. It's called Metamorphosis Batch 2. That was great. That came in at like 7.3, has like passion fruit, fresh limes, and orange peels. Kind of get this fruity IPA, a different kind of hop finish too as well that I've had. So I really liked it. So Metamorphosis, and I got the other one. They do this like Breakfast Club series, kind of like the 80s Breakfast Club thing. And I 4-pack of the basket case, which was like a slightly soured IPA, and it's brewed with this basket case's lunch, which is this Captain Crunch Pixie Six thing. But they also put it in flaked oats, pale and wheat malt, and then hopped with Amarillo, Citra, and Mosaic hops. It is blended with a little of their sour ale and touched with milk sugar. Really good stuff. Again, it's kind of cool to check out these places because they have kind of, I don't know, like taste profiles that are really different from the places that I frequent, because I'm at Free Will. That's where I'll kind of pick up a lot of stuff, check out all their new stuff, and they've got this particular trend. The other thing, this is all the cool news, is North Slope Brewery, which is in Dallas, PA. I went by and grabbed like a 4-pack of their Armando Dynamite, too, as well, last weekend. And so I'm sitting there drinking their Armando Dynamite. I'm just looking at their can and reading their stuff. It turns out that Free Will brews it for them. So I was like, oh my God, a good connection. So that was kind of a cool thing to find out that they're and that's the one that they kind of are attempting to really mass produce for market. So I mean, they brew most of their stuff there, but this is the kind of thing that Free Will's been helping them out with some of the brewing. So I thought that was just kind of
Free Will actually does contract brews for people.
Yeah, and this is one of them. So I thought it was kind of a cool, kind of little connection to find out. But anyway, so you were home and you kind of basically touched bases with your your friends down at Forest and Main, and you brought your niece, your little niece, to the bar.
I did not bring my niece to the bar. So Wednesday after Wagner's town hall, I went to Forest and Main, had a couple beers there. They had a 3.1% session stout on that was absolutely amazing. They had a nice IPA that was like 5.5%, and then I went to I picked up a couple 4-packs. I had Embracing Fear, which is more of a New England style IPA, juicy, nice hoppy taste to it, and then one called Inner Edges, which was a sour cherry saison. So it was like a nice funky saison, with like cherries added to it. It was really good.
Oh, awesome, man! Awesome. I know it's always a bit like of a homecoming when you head down to Forest and Main. Like you love that place so much.
Yes, and then actually on Thursday I went to Marciano's in Manioc, which is a tomato pie place, and I pretty much ate like 3/4 of a tomato pie
in the car on your right way home.
Yes, throughout the day.
Throughout the day.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, you were raving about that place.
Yes.
Cool. Well, there you have it, folks. Anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
That is it.
I do have to say, you got some cool. So you said you're going out to take some pictures and stuff there of the floods and stuff like that throughout the day. You did have some kind of cool pictures of the blue heron and things that you posted.
Yeah, I saw a great blue heron the other day, which is kind of rare to see them on City Island. Usually, like they're not that rare, but there's not a lot of them out here compared to the egrets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's really cool seeing a great blue heron on City Island. Usually, like they're in Wildwood Park, which is a few miles away. And it's a man-made lake reservoir area that usually you will see them in.
Cool.
Which is nice.
Well, check out Sean on Instagram, man, and check out all his pictures. And you too can, what's it, kitchen.snaps, right, on Instagram?
Yep, Kitchen Snaps.
Kitchen Snaps. There you have it. All right. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. You've lived through another week of Out to Coup podcast. We did not do what we did, like what we did with Free Range this week, and subject you to 3 hours of talk. But I know this is a good, probably 40 minutes longer than Sean will have it anyway. So we're gonna break even on that. There we go. So remember, if you want to support this work, if you want to support progressive, pull no punches media right here in Pennsylvania, homegrown progressive media, become a member of Raging Chicken for as little $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com/RCPress today. Right, we need you as we move into 2018 to become a member and support the work. We've got a lot of cool plans, but it all depends on hitting that next membership goal. We hope you're going to help us out with that. So, Sean, man, here's to another grand old week. I hope you don't get flooded out.
I should not.
All right. See ya.
Two-thirds of Pennsylvanians think that climate change is an issue that needs to be addressed, But you have said that climate change is a result of people's body heat and are refusing to take action on the issue. Does this have anything to do with the $200,000 that you have taken from the fossil fuel industry?
Rose, you know what? I appreciate you being here, and you're 18 years old, and you know you're a little young and naive. Let me.
All right, man. Cool.
All right.
What do you got on the agenda today?
Nothing really. Just our phone call.
Oh, just your phone call. All right.
Yep.
Well, enjoy staring at the ceiling, whatever the hell you're going to do.
I will.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.